In the books The Piano Lesson by August Wilson, The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, A Raisin in the Sun by Lorraine Hansberry, and The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros, the authors illustrate the key aspects of being an American in the 20th century. This perspective differs between each individual, but the focus on pride in one's cultural heritage is always present. In addition, the aspects of race, gender, and social status greatly affect the idea of being an American. However, the main idea portrayed by these books is that economic status does not dictate one's ability to achieve the American dream. In The Piano Lesson, Boy Willie focuses all his efforts on obtaining economic success. He believes that once he can buy his own land, he will have achieved his version of the American dream. Boy Willie is even willing to give up his sister's piano, a beloved family heirloom holding the rich cultural heritage of their family. Boy Willie argues to Bernice that, "You can sit up here and look at that piano for the next 100 years, and it's just going to be a piano. Now I want to get Suther's land with that piano. I get Sutter's land, and I can go down and cash in the crop and get my seed." From his point of view, the economic value of selling the piano is more important than its family significance. However, once Bernice plays the piano at the end of the story in order to rid their house of Sutter's ghost, Boy Willie realizes that embracing his cultural heritage is the most prominent component of being American. In addition to the cultural aspect of the American identity portrayed by the characters in The Piano Lesson, constraints of race play a large role in shaping American ideals. For example, Lyman was arrested in the South for being unemployed, a Jim Crow law only African Americans were subjected to. Then, he was forced to work in the convict lease system for Mr. Stovall against his will. Although racial discrimination was not as bad in the North, African Americans were limited to manual labor jobs. Avery, who was studying to be a priest, had to take a job working at an elevator in order to earn a living. Not only does race play a large role in the American identity, but gender does as well. The traditional roles of women in the 20th century are portrayed when Avery tells Bernice that she needs a husband in order to support herself and her family. However, Bernice challenges this idea by rejecting Avery, embodying the newly emerging role of women in the late 1900s. So, although the characters in The Piano Lesson accept the cultural aspect of being an American, they are still held back by social and racial limitations.
In The Great Gatsby, the main character, Jay Gatsby, is faced with the challenge to complete his American dream with the help of the narrator, Nick Carraway. After buying a house directly across from Daisy Buchanan and befriending her cousin, Nick, he begins his campaign to gain Daisy's love and to get her divorced from her husband, Tom Buchanan. His effort to achieve his dreams illustrates the struggles of many Americans during the 20th century. Nick describes Gatsby to have believed in the green light, the orgastic feature that year by year recedes before us. The green light is Gatsby's final goal of winning Daisy's love. Despite his journey to his wealth, Gatsby cannot win over Daisy, nor can he reach the green light. He gains wealth to provide both security and status because he thinks this wealth will allow him to obtain his dream. But Tom, Daisy's husband, symbolizes old money, or the idea of an inherited status. The new money class, which includes Gatsby, does not understand this level of stature and this aristocracy. In this way, Daisy prefers the security and safety of Tom's combined wealth and status over Gatsby's wealth and lack of high status, despite her own love for Gatsby. Although many dreams of fulfillment and success revolve around the need of wealth, wealth cannot be used to gain a person's love alone.
In A Raisin in the Sun, an African-American family called the Younger family is faced with racial challenges as it attempts to move out of the urban ghettos of Chicago. After buying a house in an all-white neighborhood, the family is presented with several reasons not to move into the house. Although they are warned that their house might be bombed, the Youngers are not deterred from moving in. The segregation of neighborhoods in the 20th century is clearly highlighted when Mr. Lindner, the head of the so-called Welcoming Committee, offers the family money in order to prevent the Youngers from moving into Clybourne Park. In addition, all members of the Younger family have their own individual dreams that they hope to achieve. Each of their dreams requires the money obtained from the death of Big Walter, the former head of the family. His son, Walter, dreams of owning a liquor store in order to gain wealth and become the main financial provider of the family. Mama and Ruth, Younger, both want to escape the cycle of poverty that the family is trapped in by buying a new house in Clybourne Park, the all-white neighborhood. Benita wants to become a doctor and would like to use the money to pay for school. However, once Walter loses the money through a scam, the family is forced to choose between moving into the new home or selling it to Mr. Linder and the residents of Clybourne Park. Ultimately, Walter comes to his senses and tells Mr. Linder that they have decided to move into their house because his father earned it for them brick by brick. Walter chooses not to leave the new house so he can preserve his family's pride and protect his father's legacy. Benita eventually embraces her cultural heritage and plans on becoming a doctor in Africa. The Younger family represents how the American dream is not necessarily restricted to wealth and prosperity, and how Americans can achieve happiness through the possession of pride within one's family.
In The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros, Esperanza Cordero, a young Chicana, does not initially understand the true significance of a home. Esperanza wants a typical home in a well-off American suburb because she is not satisfied with her run-down home. In the vignette called Elenita, Cards, Palms, Water, Esperanza goes to Elenita, a witch woman, to find out what the future holds for her. Esperanza learns from Elenita that she will obtain a home in the heart rather than a physical home. The home that Elenita describes is a home that represents mental and emotional stability rather than physical security. Although Esperanza seeks an actual house, she doesn't recognize the value of one's happiness and inner security, and only understands the safety of having a roof over one's head. Throughout the book, Esperanza believes that her goal is to own a house because her home in the barrio brings shame to her. But in reality, Esperanza's true American dream is achieving social equality. Overall, each book depicts a different aspect of American culture. Each aspect ties together to make up the idea of what an American was during the 20th century, a dreamer. In the piano lesson, Boy Willie accepts his cultural heritage and stops pursuing his original dream of owning land. In exchange for his dream, he embraces his family's history. In A Raisin in the Sun, Walter and Benita both stick with their dreams while accepting that the family's pride comes before the value of money. In The House on Mango Street, Esperanza accepts that while a physical house is important, she does not need material values to have a happy and successful life. Finally, in The Great Gatsby, Jay Gatsby works to become rich because he thinks richness will allow him to gain Daisy's love. However, when he fails to attain Daisy's love, it becomes obvious that wealth does not ensure that other dreams will be accomplished. Each of these literary works serves to prove that people can achieve the American dream regardless of wealth.